Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Non-Pro in general.
Is it weird that I have like some blast of nostalgia from hearing that music? This is how long I've done this.
It's been so long. Really, this is just an excuse for James and I to talk to each other.
We don't talk otherwise.
If we don't have an audience, we don't want to talk to each other. It's so awkward to invite us to parties because we're just gonna sit there. I don't want to. No.
I don't actually like that guy. You know?
No, not at all. In fact, that's it. Bye. We can get you out of this shot and slowly out. Hi, welcome to Frank on Film. That's a great idea for a podcast.
What?
It's not even an idea for a podcast. It's just a thing.
Just a name.
It's just a name. That's 90% of our projects are just
That's
a name.
true.
Like, we got to fill it out.
Puppet show?
Too early. Way too early to be doing this. Welcome back, everyone who's watching this either live or on tape, as they say in the business, or via podcast, because we're kind of a podcast network. We should probably put this out as a podcast as well. Welcome back. I'm Frank, and I'm joined by James, not at all in studio.
Yeah,
we are both here to talk about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves. What if I was talking about the original Dungeons and Dragons movie? How about that?
Did you know that had 2 sequels?
I didn't know it had 2. It did have 2, but I did not know that until I found it recently. And I have no idea which one I've seen. I know I saw the first one.
It had one direct to DVD sequel, and then they would play those 2 on Sci-Fi often when Sci-Fi was playing all the bad movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then Sci-Fi spent a mediocre amount of money to make their own bad movies, and then one of them was the third iteration of the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
There's probably going to be a fair amount of discussing of that first movie just because spoiler alert, we loved the Dungeons and Dragons movie. We loved Honor Among Thieves. I didn't know. But James, you agree, right? You like it as well? I think we clearly talked about it.
I really liked it.
Yes.
Look, I'm not going to tell you out here it should be winning any Oscars, but I mean, compared to what we've had and what it could have been, I was thrilled. I had a blast seeing it in theaters, and it felt like I was watching a Dungeons and Dragons movie. And I think one of the key reasons of that is, and I'll just lay it out here, is comedy. Right?
Oh, yeah.
D&D is funny when it's with your friends.
It had a good mixture of adventure, comedy, nods to the fiction and to the setting, the generic D&D setting, and then specifically to some of the name settings. Well, I, on the other hand, though, am here to tell you it should win an Oscar. All the Oscars.
Oh, okay.
Best original score, best on-screen kiss. I may have confused the Oscars with the MTV Movie Awards.
I was about to say.
And I don't care. I honestly, absolutely, and I'm sure there's going to be people who are immediately turning this off, but I those are the people I want to talk to. I absolutely love this movie. It was amazing. There's a lot of elements that went into it. I think why I loved it, possibly the biggest, was the first movie I've seen in theaters in many years, which is a little crazy outside of like drive-in theaters. And I think the last movie I may have seen in theaters may have been, it was actually during the pandemic. I think it was Black Widow or something. And then I just
Black Widow?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I just had a lot of kids, and there was that pandemic thing going on, and I got really busy. Kids was the worst thing.
That's me right now. 2 kids. It was, I was thrilled because I know originally we thought maybe we'd see this together, and we just, with the 4 kids between the 2 of us, it just wasn't going to happen. When another friend of ours, Cappy, said, what about a 12:30 in the afternoon? I was like, I can find someone to watch my kids for 2 hours at 12:30 in the afternoon. That'll happen.
You could do it. Yeah. Here's a cute puppy, kids. You'll be busy for at least an hour and a half, and then 1 hour of crying. It'll be fine.
Just left Miles in the lobby, so
yes. So again, we're not good judges for this review because both of us are very just excited to get out of the house. We were just happy to be out of the house. We were just happy to do anything. But no, I was pleasantly surprised. I think every stage of this movie as I became aware of first that it was pitched, I was like, "Oh, all right. I guess we can make a D&D movie now, right?" That's I remember we did a show once where we talked about different pitches for what the D&D movie could be, and I wowed the entire Line Cutters audience by doing my amazing pitch of it should be all and people wept. People wept. Wept? Wept. Wept. People wept so hard they wept.
I think
Um
you might be overselling this.
no. It should be all like in and out of character. Um, and like, so it was early stages. We didn't even know what the movie is about. And I was like, it could happen. Now it feels like once again, enough time has passed where I feel like we can make this movie. And since geek is now chic, yeah, I think it could happen. To the first trailer dropping, and I'm like, oh my god, this is actually good. This looks good. To the fiasco that was the early 2023 Wizards of the Coast Hasbro OGL nonsense where everybody was going nuts for good reason, uh,
Yep.
down to where it settled out, and we got to see the movie, and it was pretty damn strong. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I'm old enough where I can enjoy that the things I like are available to me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I've read so many weird takes on the internet, and I'm not going to dwell on them because who cares? But like people just getting upset that their longtime hobby is being accepted by others.
Yeah. It's kind of sad because having more people to play games with and do fun things with seems like it would be a benefit.
Yes, and I get it. It's not that black and white, and then sometimes the thing you love gets mixed up in a way that you don't quite like. But this movie was amazing to me personally, and that's the only person I care about, me. So why am I doing this show right now, you ask? Well, James, this is an intervention. We have a role-playing project that we have continuously tried to work on and have not. I think we need, now that we've proof of concept that this is a thing that can exist, I think we need to go back to the tapes and edit a certain role-playing
No.
project that I'll talk about later in the hour or wherever long this is going to last, because I'm getting a lot of messages right now from people saying don't bring it up.
Let's say I came here for the movie.
Yeah,
I'll
all right.
talk about the movie, all right?
Absolutely. Let's talk about this movie. All right. Where to begin? James, what was your take on the movie in general? And we don't need to do a scene by scene recap, obviously, because if you've seen it, you've seen it. And if not, we're gonna talk about it in full spoilers. But what was you said comedy was the thing that brought it all together for you.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to tell you like every joke landed. I think once they got the stride, it was a lot of it was really funny, and I think that's something that I feel like was missing in other iterations of the serious takes on Dungeons and Dragons. Because I don't know about you guys. I mean, I've obviously played plenty of Dungeons and Dragons games or plenty of role playing games, and they can be serious. But even our most serious games, like they need that comedy break. They
Yeah.
need a minute of people getting a good laugh in, whether it's in and out of character, because you're hanging out with friends. And I feel like that's what I think without the meta aspect, which I think might have been weird for a major part of the audience, if you were to do some sort of like table back and forth bit,
Mhm.
I think that was the thing that sold it for me, particularly. And I apologize for butchering his name, but Regé John Page, Bridgerton actor,
Mr. Bridgerton, as otherwise known as.
the hot guy from the first season of
Oh,
Bridgerton.
that's not fair. There were plenty of hot guys in the first
Yeah,
season.
but he's the
The main hot guy.
the main hot guy, exactly. Um, his interactions with the entire cast as sort of like the epic level heroes slash NPC guest character is just I do not think I stopped laughing and awing during all of that stuff. Not only is he afforded some of the best action scenes
Mm.
in the whole movie, but his like Drax like character, for lack of a better word, someone who is kind of like, like, well, I'm a paladin. I'm very
Socially
serious.
awkward and
Yeah.
unable to handle slang or metaphor.
was just so funny.
It was great. Um, so taking it to pieces, you could tell we haven't done this in a while because it's like chunks of info dump. We're used to soliloquying to ourselves. So to take it so that it was in and out of character was obviously not something they did. In fact, I guess they specifically said they weren't going to do any nods to the camp, and I think that was
Yeah.
great. I think it was the right way to go. I think if somebody turned their face to the camera, and went like, "I guess I botched that one," huh? It would have been intolerable.
Yeah.
Uh, I think there could be an art house kind of D&D movie that does bridge that gap of in world and out of world. And I think there's been plenty of movies that have done characters who are trying to, deal with their fantasy lives. I am, of course, talking about Mazes and Monsters, the best D&D movie ever made. But I think you could have done it well. And I'm not just saying that because that was my original pitch for the film, but I'm
Sure.
so glad they didn't do it, which is weird. Everything about this movie for me, I do love the humor. I love the action pieces. I love the set dressing and all that, and the acting and the everything about it, really. But for me, it's how often things shouldn't work in this movie, but did. Uh, One quick example: the number of characters and how prolonged their introductions are. Like this was almost original Suicide Squad movie number of characters and late additions of characters into the movie where like suddenly the new character shows up. For example, that the Paladin played by I think it's Regé Jean. Regé.
I
Why
think
are
it's
we
Reggie.
doing this to ourselves? Regé Jean Page, otherwise known as Zach Zander. I don't know.
Zek Yander.
Zach
Or Zek
Yander, which of course
Yander. We'll also
we're
butcher
not.
his D&D character's name.
Impossible to remember. But yeah, the Paladin character gets pretty introduced relatively well into the running time.
It's like a
And,
midpoint character.
yeah, and like he takes over for quite a while, and it's just more charming. You think Chris Pine, who elevates pretty much every movie he's in, I honestly, uh, he carries a lot of the charismatic weight of the film in the beginning, the kind of jokey, charming aspect. Not that anybody else isn't, but like he definitely does a lot of the heavy lifting on that. And then this guy comes in and he takes over for a while. And the two of them, their dynamic is really, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work where there's so many new characters being added, jostling for viewpoint and for main story. We even get his backstory, the Paladin's backstory, in the middle of this, and I didn't feel like this is tedious. Why are you telling me all this? I don't need to know it. It felt important, and it was sort of. It's incredible how much worked in this film.
Well, and to some extent, it feels like Dungeons and Dragons. Like not just in not just in like a world setting and all the nods to Forgotten Realms and all the like fun stuff they do there. But I mean, like, let's take the opening gambit, right? So they're going to see the council. Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine characters, which is Ed and Holga, right?
Yeah,
So Ed and Holga, they're going to see the council, right? And I feel like we've literally played this game where, one of the players and they're asking them, who's on the council?
yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know, this guy, this bird person. Whoa, what's the bird person's name? Oh, Jonathan. Perfect. All right, guys, new plan. So we're going to. It's like I thought we are gonna, like what do you call? Roll our way out of this with persuasion, right?
Yeah.
Right, charisma. It's like no, that's never gonna work. Here's what we're
That definitely feels like some terrible plan a player came up with last minute, and they rolled it and did it.
right. And then even as the DM, you're like, okay, well now I know what their plan is. This is ridiculous. I don't want them to do that. So you're trying to delay the arrival of the character, but they keep asking about it.
The fact that his name is a bad pronunciation of Jonathan is all builds up. It's perfect. It really is pitch perfect for what a game feels like when you're playing it. The backstory, the way they did exposition in this film was wonderful. Exposition is always such a sore point with these genre films where you feel necessary to explain so much, and the things he didn't explain were wonderful. They never explain why the bird people exist, Arakoa. They never explain like why some dragons look like dragons and some dragons look like people. They never explained the cat people, and even I don't know what that was about. I guess they're cat people. Maybe it's a later edition. I don't know, but like it makes sense. Yeah, I don't question it.
But I think also thankfully we're in a point in film and genre and public acceptance where they can do that, right?
Yeah.
I feel like, again, with the original D&D movie, or when you were doing this years and years back, you'd have to be a very daring filmmaker to be like, we can just present these things and people will accept them.
People will just
and some studio executive would come in with notes being like, I don't understand any of this.
What's the floating bowl thing? And what? Yeah.
What's that cube of ooze? But
yeah,
I think now people get it enough that it's a little more in the zeitgeist.
So over the last few years, I think superhero films, which may have been the vanguard of geek culture, sort of taking over the world, it happened so subtly, but so decisively that I didn't like. It happened without me realizing. It took me quite a while, maybe even 10 years, to fully realize, look back and be like, my mom knows who Iron Man is. That's weird to me. Like there was a time when these were
second tier comic book character.
Yeah, these basic things that no one should know. Hydra and Shield in my workplace, but everyone gets it. That was fantastic, and I think it did build in, like you said, this acceptance of geek culture, for lack of a better word. But with role-playing games, specifically with D&D, that happened without my consent. That happened without me realizing it. Like without me participating in it. Right? I was at least there pushing every comic book movie that came out in the early 2000s, and liking it and buying into it and what have you. But all the big D&D growth that happened up until the end of 2022, when in the beginning of 2023 we had a minor backlash. The D&D being in like grocery stores and your supermarket and your bookstores everywhere, just everywhere, and being just generally accepted, everyone just wanting to learn how to play D&D. That happened without like my direct involvement or yours, like our generation. Even I think like you got younger people pulling this up, partially from like Critical Role and a bunch of like D&D podcasts and live streams. And I think initially it probably got started with Stranger Things for a large part. And you and I kind of both did something along those lines for the New Jersey Comic Expo a couple of years ago. And those kids grew up to be, late teens now, and they're buying into this product, but it had nothing to do with me until I turned around sometime in 2022, and I'm like, D&D is everywhere, and it's fascinating and really just fun. It's amazing. I'm so glad we're back to more wholesale acceptance of it than we were at the top of the year, where people were lashing back out against about the thing. But like it's I'm rambling because I can't believe we got this movie, and I can't believe I can go to the corner store and buy like a Beholder themed beef jerky.
I mean, there's a lot of D&D merch out there for sure.
What's that?
Oh, popcorn. It's the dice thing that was $35.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
You like some popcorn?
I would love some popcorn. Thank you. That would be nice of you to bring it over to the correct side of the screen.
Take that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Great. Thank you, James.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's it, folks. That's why we did the podcast.
All right.
Those of you listening to the podcast, we're not going to explain it. I'm sorry. No, we passed popcorn through the screen like an old Bob Hope.
All right. Bit. So let's talk a little bit about can we talk a little about the story of the movie? Sure. And then I'd love to chat a bit about Easter eggs. Sure. And then maybe the cast, and then specifically maybe some things we like really loved, and then maybe some stuff we didn't like specifically.
Some rose and thorns. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
I thought the plot was pretty okay. I like that the movie's framed as like a heist movie. I think that sort of Ocean's 11, sort of reverse heist
Mhm.
specifically, I thought was fun. It was a fun concept that really worked. I definitely really liked that there were a couple of really unique filmmaking transition items that I really liked. Whether it was uh, two that stood out to me specifically. It was really weird. Um, the pacing as they were climbing down into the hole, they did a great like transition with that, and then the whole sequence where they're trying to get the portal onto the in the painting onto the truck was all
That
really
was
good,
brilliant, yeah.
really well shot. But yeah, I think the whole reverse heist thing is good. Kind of, I don't dislike. But I know one of the aspects I like about D&D is kind of the dungeon master getting to flex his stuff, and I know Hugh Grant is kind of the bad guy in this, but I feel like the red wizard's kind of generic evil, for that third act big bad stuff,
Mm.
they lost it a little bit for me. Um, but I liked the kind of like party interplay of like Hugh Grant's character being the bad guy and kind of betraying the rest of them. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I could see that. I was less for me, the elements that the again, something that shouldn't have worked but did work was a number of different, um, modes this game fell into. There was the heist or reverse heist. There was the prison break, which was small but significant. There were the fetch quests, the
Yep.
numerous fetch quests, the dungeon crawl. There was a decent amount of dungeon crawl in this. At least there was, there was certainly a dragon within a dungeonous area, right?
It was the underdog. It's
Yeah.
classic Forgotten Realms.
Then there's the arena fighting. That's a big story plot where you're a prisoner and you have to fight your way out, or more or less a prisoner that have to fight their way out. We didn't have any high seas hijinks really. There's just there were just so many top level big idea for the campaign that happened in this, and they managed to touch on all of them without staying too long in any one, and without making it feel like it was dragging on anyone. I think if this whole thing were an adventure, if this were a Peter Jackson joint and this were broken out into 3 movies, and you were like, okay, already find the helm and get back to it, I don't think it would have worked. It's just not the same kind of adventure flick. And so this worked well for me in all those areas where it touched on each one of them. Um, and it did kind of feel like it was almost like a prestige TV series in like 3 or 4 episodes smashed into one movie. But like that, when you watch one of those shows, you're like, wow, this could have been a film. Wow, it's so good. It could have been a movie. This is the reverse, where it's like, hey, you know what? Let's just make a movie, even though each episode had its own story arc. One of the scenes, though, just to give you a scene that I thought was really well put together, I know this is going to irritate some diehards, rules lawyers out there, was the druid transition scene. The effect that what felt like a long shot.
When she's
Uh,
running away, I think it
yeah,
is. I think it's all physically one take. I mean, I'm sure there's
yeah, there's
it's CG, a lot of CGI and stuff, but
exactly. And I thought that was just high energy, high octane, very fun,
it was great. Yeah,
and well done. And it had a way of like lightening the pace and heightening the stakes all at once. And it was great. Yeah, it was just a wonderful little element there. I particularly liked that for almost the same reason the arena scenes, because again, you've got this when you've got a movie whose runtime is 2.5 plus, I think, hours. You want to speed things up as soon as possible, as much as possible, and these little action pieces really do push things along.
it was 134 minutes, and I can't do math at the top of my head. So
Someone do math and let us know if you know math. Write down the answer on a 3x5 index card and mail into the studio. We'll wait.
I really enjoyed all of the cast as well in the movie. Obviously, we talked about some of the bigger names, right? Chris Pine is obviously a big name. Michelle Rodriguez is as the barbarian, kind of even
Delightful.
typecast.
Somebody described her as a relatively low intelligence barbarian, and I never really thought of it that way going into this movie. I'm so glad I didn't look into anything before I saw the movie. But I'm like, yeah, she kind of was, and then not in an insulting
No,
way. She was just like, slightly naive, turn into a deer. Just turn into a deer. Deer's fun. It plays out the way you would want to play that character if you've chosen a barbarian who isn't that worldly.
exactly.
Yeah,
We spoke about Hot Bridgerton guy. But I really loved also the two of we'll call them the younger cast members. Justice Smith, this is his second video game movie. He's actually the star of Detective Pikachu.
I would say Pikachu is the star of Detective Pikachu.
All right, well,
Not Ryan Reynolds. Pikachu.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Justice Smith, I did a really good job. I think I actually really liked his journey in the
Yeah.
film, maybe the most. Is tying into his grandfather, who's obviously a big character in D&D lore. His sort of the hapless wizard thing, until he kind of finds his confidence. I think that all really worked. And it's a nice, simple, and fun character concept. And then Sophia Lillis, who's the girl from It, at least chapter
Oh,
one, because she's the kid at
yeah.
the time. But she's fantastic. She's just an incredible actor. Everything she's been in has been amazing. So, she did a really good job in this too, as the druid.
So I just realized, and this is going to come up a lot in a little bit, but was that actually Elminster, his great great grandfather, or was that just one? He is the
No,
descendant of Elminster.
no, that is supposed to be. I
So
believe that is supposed to be Elminster.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure about that because I thought maybe he was, Elminster was the great 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 grand, like he was just in the line of Elminster. All right.
No, I
There's a
think
lot of
that's
things like
supposed to
that
be
that I didn't pick
Elminster.
up on. For example, the Fat Dragon, which we will talk about in a minute because I've since learned a lot about Fat Dragons, and I can't think of anything else. I'm sure there were the cat people I mentioned, and I didn't look into it. I just assumed you could play cat people because what kind of role playing game would allow you to play a cat person?
So, I'll tell you an embarrassing thing, and this is
Yes.
more of a movie thing, not a D&D fact. It wasn't until after the movie that I realized Michelle Rodriguez's ex-husband was Bradley Cooper. Because
Oh,
I'm watching it and I'm thinking, that guy looks a lot like Bradley Cooper, but Bradley Cooper wouldn't have done a dumb cameo in this dumb movie, right? Like, that's not really Bradley Cooper. And it wasn't until later on the internet everyone was like, no, yeah, that's really Bradley Cooper. And I'm like, wow, I am.
So I'll meet you halfway. I also thought that guy looks a lot like Bradley Cooper, but then I just assumed it was Bradley Cooper because, of course, he would do this because he was a raccoon in the last movie.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah. But yes, so there was a lot of interesting choices made to bring all these characters together. I honestly think the entire party works very well. We talked about Michelle Rodriguez's character, who is, charming and strong and cool, just the perfect barbarian in this. I think Chris Pine makes an excellent bard in this. I wouldn't have expected it.
I almost wish he did more the song and dance. We don't get him kind of, other than a little bit in the backstory, we don't really get him doing a bard thing until I think a quarter of the way through the movie.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I disagree. I know the internet's
yeah?
saying that he is not much of a bard, and we need to see
I
him
don't
do
think he's not.
magic or whatever.
I don't think he's not much of a bard. I just
Well,
would have liked more.
the internet is harsher on him than you are. Obviously, they're harsher on everything. But I disagree. See, I interpreted it as I was watching the film as them doing a subtle version of what a bard does. So for me in games, it's weird to me that there is just this one class that does magic songs. And I know it's got a long history that kind of gets muddled in Tolkien and the power of song and the creation of the Middle Earth world in a song and what have you. I get that, but for the most part, it always seems to me like when I'm inspiring courage, I'm just singing a real good song, or I'm inspiring people. I'm doing a good job. I'm performing in a way that gets people interested and excited and makes them do well. I don't necessarily see it as like definitive magic that has components and has like wisps of magic coming off the fingertips.
Well, no,
So when he does things to get his group like excited and back on track, to me, that is the bard stuff. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I meant more because like Chris Pine is very capable of singing and dancing.
Apparently, from the
Really?
things I've seen. Oh my god, he did well. I
So
mean, the thing about
he could
melting
have
was
done
weird. I didn't know
no,
he could melt on cue.
that was so funny. I was curled over laughing. That scene was so funny.
There were so many good scenes in this film. I don't know. Have we done it? It's weird. It is weird when I like a movie this much, but that I just enjoyed it. Right? Like I just had fun. That I almost don't. When I posted about this as soon as I saw, I said no notes. I have nothing I want to tweak. Not little like suggestions here or there. There isn't even a lot of like, oh, this is great, and here's the reason why this is great. It is for me a great a great film, and it is great in ways that I couldn't even expect. Like I would never have if I would never have expected this way of introducing characters would have worked. I would have never expected this many different kinds of like genre switches would have worked. Comedy, I would have definitely said yes, make it lighthearted and fun. Action, yes, make it lighthearted and fun. Referencing supernatural creatures that I just peppering them in the background without having to explain what a displacer beast is for 10 minutes of film time. I would have suggested, and I knew
The
that
little
worked
brain
out
things
well.
walk by. So, well, that's insulting.
That was the one joke that didn't land for me. It didn't like not
I thought that
land.
landed.
Yeah, I liked it, but it was telegraphed. I knew as soon as
Oh
they
yeah.
described what they did. It's one of the few creatures that describe what they like, what their deal is, and I think
Well, because you gotta
it's the
get it
joke.
to
You
get
need
the
to know
joke.
it.
You gotta
Yeah,
explain the joke.
yeah. And when they just walked past them, I was like, yeah. And I've heard people complain. I hate to keep going back to what other people are saying, but like people have complained that that's not accurate, or the owlbear thing. You can't become an owlbear. I don't know. I must have DM'd for 10, 20 years. I'm pretty damn sure I've allowed druids become owlbears. There's got to be a feat you could take.
There's so many home rules you can do to Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Right.
For the story to go the way you want.
Yeah.
I did have some nitpicks.
All right. Go for it because I have none.
All right. Well, so I said I liked the humor. I thought most of the stuff landed. I really wish we didn't open with the sexual assault joke.
I
Obviously,
do recall that bothering me, but I'm
yeah.
forgetting about it almost immediately because
Yeah,
of
I mean, obviously,
what
Michelle
happened.
Rodriguez's character can take care of herself. We know from like the very minute she's on screen that she's going to be okay. But I don't know. It just,
Yep. Agree.
after Game of Thrones and all this sort of stuff, I don't know. I feel like I thought we've kind of learned and changed a little bit in sexual assault in the fantasy
Yeah,
genre and
yeah.
that sort of thing. So
It's just tiresome to have to face it in fantasy all the time. And I
yeah,
think it would have been just as valid, in fact, even maybe funnier if maybe there was an orc who had showed up, was like relatively peaceful, but she was just mad. And she'd be telling everybody.
yeah, like they were expecting a fight, and yeah, there were other jokes that could have worked there.
Yeah,
For sure.
arguing for the bed or whatever. Yeah, there's lots of things they could have done.
Obviously for the way the plot goes, Chris Pine's or Ed's wife, or the
Ah,
concept of his wife, is important to kind of work the way it does, but she has, she's the medieval D&D version of the refrigerator here. She has no real depth to her, right? I mean,
yes,
literally only these scenes she's in, she giggles and laughs and looks pretty and is his wife. If she had, so that was it. Those were the two in movie nitpicks.
that I find very. I read a similar take on that. I think of that those two specific points, other than all the ones about the super like druids need to rest
Yeah,
between
I don't care.
shifting and owl bears and stuff that I don't give a damn
Yeah,
about.
just don't care about any of
Um,
that.
but I heard about the the fantasy trope or the narrative trope of what inspires you to go out and be an adventurer, to risk your life, to be miserable. And it's often like a loved one who is in peril or a loved one who is killed. I have major issues with it because I acknowledge how problematic and boring and like trite that is, but also like it does make a lot of sense and it's so baked into how we tell stories. Not that it has to be a wife or anything, like even John Wick had a dog, and that in itself is problematic because like, well, you equating this person with a dog? why didn't this person have more of a backstory? Could it have even possibly worked with more of a backstory without
I
being overly heavy?
I think it would have been easy enough to give us a scene, something that complicates their relationship or his feelings for why he wants to bring her back, right? You know, not just sort of this longing and guilt, but just a realism to their relationship that adds a slight layer to it.
I think what
It's not, you know, it's not making or breaking the movie for me. Again,
yeah,
this trope exists so much in fiction that,
it's hard to even see it sometimes. Yeah,
yeah, but
I
it's not, you know, it would, this story would have still worked with one extra scene that complicated that, or
I
doing
think
this in a little bit of a different way.
I think my note now, the one note I have, thanks a lot, James, and all the victims of fantasy violence that inspired our heroes to go out and be heroic. But I think my one note would be, I'm trying to think. Oh, yes, the paladin character who brings up the notion of there are many planes of existence. What makes you think she wants to be here? Or like, what? Why would you pull her away from paradise? If we had an earlier scene that established her faith,
That would have been
um,
good.
that would have been an interesting. It may have been too heady, but it may have been an interesting. It would have given her some agency, arguably, to whether she should come back and make Pine's character Ed a little more guilty of what
Mm,
he felt guilty of the entire movie, which was,
that's
you know,
that's what I want.
I didn't do this for my kid. I did this for me. It would be even more so because you didn't do it for your kid or for your wife. You did it for you, literally you, against her wishes.
Yeah,
Um, and I think it would have been a little bit more poignant. And yeah, I think that would have been. That's my note. Oh,
yeah. It's a
oh,
small note though. It's not.
F. This movie sucks. 1 star, half star.
There was another thing that bothered me, but it's not in the movie.
Okay. Oh, what?
That weird thing at the beginning where, for those of you who see this in theaters or in an AMC, there's this weird thing where they put the cast in
The
front of the
hostage
screen and
scene.
say, you guys, you guys are the best because you went to go see a movie."
You're
And
the
like,
real heroes.
yeah, you're the real heroes. Hugh
Oh
Grant
my.
doesn't say anything the entire time. He looks uncomfortable and unhappy. Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez are doing most of the talking. You know, and they're doing a pretty good job holding it together.
No,
And then the two younger cast members, Sophia and Justice, are kind of like,
they look miserable as the as that shot fades out. They're like they're being forced to encourage people to go out after COVID, like when COVID restrictions should have been released. It was really, really disturbing.
you know who's getting
Hugh Grant
royalties
does
on
one line
ticket
at the
sales?
end. Most of the Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez do a little bit. Most of it's delivered by Page, and he does an amazing job because he could read the phone book and be captivating. And it really feels like a hostage situation. Like AMC's like, this is not going into theaters until you make people feel for it. You look them in the eye. Yeah, that was very uncomfortable.
So it's done modestly well. Um, Not a smash success, but it's doing okay. If we were to get a sequel, what's something you would want to see and something you would absolutely want them to stay away from?
Oh my goodness. They did so well that I don't know if I have I no plane shifting. No, you don't have to go to a different setting every time, right? Like if, Wizards decides they want to put out what Planescape is actually what they're coming out with next for D&D 5th, I think, maybe 6th, I don't know. But their Planescape is going to be re-released, which is kind of cool, but I don't need to see the heroes in Planescape. I don't think so. I think keeping them in this setting would be kind of cool, maybe. I feel like they're gonna go to Planescape and I'm gonna be like, this is the best movie. I don't know.
You want to stick with Forgotten Realms. Spend some time establishing the lore of this place.
Yeah. If you can build up on, you know what? Here it is, a better, more serious answer. I didn't know we were gonna go this route, but it's a great, great avenue. I would like to see them building out the characters and the backstory we already have as if it were a campaign. Instead of the next movie being like completely unrelated or tangentially related, just have these people building out the consequences of what they did and what they're going to go do next, so that people feel like, oh, okay, this is a world that I'm building out and developing. That's what I think I would like. What about
Yeah.
you?
I think that's totally, and I think that's totally plausible, right? Well, his daughter's going to be a little bit older, right? She'll be a full member of the party. We'll probably drag our paladin friend back in, kind of pin them against Zaztam. Is that Zaztam? That's the bad guy,
Yeah, sure.
right?
The ghoul guy.
The what?
The ghoul guy. The ghoul
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah. The red,
The,
the
the
red
red dude.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I think I definitely would want them to spend some more time with, I think, some Forgotten Realms stuff, right? Maybe we get some Baldur's Gate. Maybe we get some more poignant locations. I mean, we open up in, like Icewind Dale of all places. It has me nervous though, because one of the most famous pieces of Forgotten Realms media is, of course, the Drow, and I just don't think there's a good way to do Drow in live action.
Interesting.
It would certainly make me very nervous. I'd be more than happy to see them pull it off, but I don't know. Dark-skinned, inherently evil race, even though Dungeons and Dragons has spent the past 30 years with Dred Stewart and trying to walk that back. I don't know. Just
I think it's complicated. I think, yeah, actually, the fact that we didn't really see much of elves or dwarves in this was fun.
We get like one dwarf cameo, though I
Yeah,
could definitely do with more dwarves. The halflings freaked me out because they were just tiny people,
that's right.
but we did get halflings. We do
Learning
see
weird things about James and what freaks him out. How short do you have to be before you freak out James? That's what I want to know.
the proportions were weird, and the way it didn't feel like the way they positioned it didn't feel like the hobbits in Lord of the Rings. It was, I don't know. We got elves, right? So obviously,
But Michelle Rodriguez has a type. I like that.
oh yeah, right. Sophia Lillis's character was an elf, and Justice Smith is a half elf. So
Wait, who was an elf? No, she wasn't. She was a tiefling.
She was a tiefling?
Yeah. She even mentioned it, brought it up in the film that you watched.
He's a half
now
elf.
reviewing. He is a half elf, though.
He's a half elf, though.
Yeah.
So we don't get any full elves.
Yeah, we don't get any screen time with full fantasy character races or species, whatever. Which I think is almost better. So my problem with doing this review, and I wanted to do it because this is like, if we don't do this, are we even non-pro anymore? But at the same time, the movie for me, like everything I would have thought on paper that would it make sense, made sense. So even now I'm like, oh, the reason why there was like that awkwardness of what an elf and a dwarf and whatever looks like is because all the characters we played with were all human or on the human spectrum, and it was much easier to say, hey, these are all varieties of human, so we expect them to be a little good, a little bad, whatever. They're not just representatives of their race. But I think back to all the Arakoa and the weird things that were in the background, and they worked perfectly well. So I don't know, maybe they could pull it all off.
No, I definitely think in the next movie we got to have more races more heavily involved in the party, right? And we're not, we're living in a post Lord of the Rings world here. Nobody's going to be shocked to see a Legolas and a Gimli show up.
Yeah, I don't think it's about shock. I think it's about actually, I just think I don't know if it's necessary, because all those will be humanoid characters unless we go crazy off script and pick something that's, again, unless the main character is going to be like Dragonkin.
No,
all right.
Yeah,
we're really into the weeds now. Let's talk about what we loved and what we didn't like about the movies. Roses and Thorns. I think we could probably spend the entire rest of this time just talking about things we liked. I love the prison break. I love how cartoonishly ridiculous it was.
We were gonna let you off.
I love that it was revisited at the end of the movie. And they had a solution for it. They bricked up the window. Do you have one?
I'm trying to think of one I haven't mentioned. All of the treasure falling out of the balloon of Hugh Grant's mouth.
That was amazing. I love. We talked about the whole heist sequence with the portable. I love the fact that we got a Portals movie.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
it was really well done.
Yeah, they're
Fat
stat
dragon, fat chonky dragon,
I
chonk
didn't know
boy.
anything about the Chonky Dragon until after the movie, and I looked him up, and I'm like, "This is a real dragon in
And
Forgotten
it,
Realms."
yes, a real is very subjective here, but yeah, that was the one thing in the film kind of threw me. I was like, why is this dragon so chunky? Why is he so? Why do they make him fat? And I kind of just in faith of the movie that we've had beforehand and what came immediately after, I was there for it. I was totally engrossed in this film. I mean, the first time back in theaters, and I'm back on my thing where I want to build a theater in my basement just to be lights out, fully into the movie. I am doing the hostage video for AMC at the start of the thing. I am the hero AMC deserves. But yeah, like I was so
You're their
engrossed.
Nicole Kidman.
I
You're
put my
you're
little note in there. Yeah, I remember that bit too. That was also very kind of. I put a note in my head. I was like, thick dragon. Why? But then I was okay with it because the paladin just walked over many stones. He just straight beeline. He's like, he's gonna move around that rock. No, he's just gonna go right over. Wow,
It was so cool.
it was so cool, and the narration over it made it even better. It was so good. Oh God, what else was there? There's gonna be moments I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering. I liked how in tuning worked. I liked that they elaborated and gave him a story. I think you're right. He is one of the characters. He has his best, I think, arc of a character in the movie. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody
we're
has a
still
moment, but
everybody's
definitely
got a
he had
moment.
a yeah,
Everybody's got a moment, but I think we see the most growth, right?
yeah,
Like, he couldn't in the next movie, his character will not necessarily be the bumbling wizard. He will
yeah,
be more confident,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like Chris Pine will still be a good father, will be a better father, but he's also still going to be a greedy thief, right?
Right.
Olga's still going to be a barbarian that loves halflings, like
I don't see how that was ever a flaw that she needed to overcome.
no, it
I think
wasn't a
that was
flaw, but
great.
I'm just saying,
God,
you
there
know,
was a lot.
his character is, I think, fundamentally changed, and I
Yeah,
think that'll be exciting.
he has a narrative that it would be awkward if they reset to 0 with him.
Correct.
Yeah. There was just a lot to the entire battle. I loved Displacer. I don't know, for whatever reason, I never thought Displacer Beast's tentacles were the source of the projections that they could
No,
shoot.
but that was great. Yeah, no,
That
totally.
makes so much sense in a weird way. It was really fun.
And the way
The
they did them, everything there was actually pretty great
Yeah,
as far as like it was very tense. I loved the thing with the ooze,
yeah,
right? And that was done really great too, because they, you know, show not tell, right? So
right.
they did the bit, they showed what the ooze did and what happened to it, but they also showed that they could be in there for a short period of time. She said it burns, but you pulled the hand out. Like it was just
Yeah.
well done. Like that was what good scripting, good movie making, you know.
The mimic was just a little touch that was fun to have, and the way they worked the mimic in, right? So they again showed not tell. They had these adventurers running around collecting, and then they would open up a chest, and there was treasure in there. That is really fundamental to the game, but also weird to happen in the middle of this scene out of like in the real world in the story of the film we're watching, except for the arena where the characters are effectively playing a game.
Yeah.
Right? They are dungeon diving for an audience,
Yeah, it'd be
right?
weird for there to be a mimic in the dungeon if they randomly found a chest, because then someone would probably have to explain and be like,
Why would they be
"Oh, well,"
going for treasure anyway?
or why would it be here? Like, what was the person trying to protect? Or it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
sometimes it would leave traps or whatever. But no, in a game, it obviously makes sense. So it's a trap.
Right. They're
You don't know
looking
what a
to
mimic
equip
is.
up
It's a trap.
to beat it, and there's a trap there. It's perfect. Well done. And I like the way things are touched upon and brought into the reality of the thing you're watching without being overly dramatic, without being overly complicated, including the chonky dragon, right? He's given a name, he's moving his lair, he is apparently well known to one of the characters, and then they have to escape the dragon. Later on, you find out, oh, I get it. This is a great wormsmith of this place that whatever, like it kind of fits now. You get context for it, but you didn't need it at the moment to have everything make sense and flow. And that is incredibly impressive. I really do think they did a great job of that. I have I have a video about my personal favorite moment, which was unfortunately spoiled for me, but I love this so much. It basically, this moment is my geek moment where I became a geek as a kid when I first saw this. So I'm gonna play it for a quick few seconds, and then we're gonna come back and talk about it.
Behold, my curious Dungeons and Dragons travelers, the power of the owl bear.
Whoa!
Wow! Wow! Wait a minute, a druid can't turn into an owl bear.
Relax, it's just a movie.
Yeah, don't be a hater.
Rules are rules for a reason.
You're such a rules lawyer.
Damn!
Oh, damn.
Critical burn.
Ah, but the first rule is, if I say it's okay, it's okay. And Eric, you suck.
I cannot believe that was official marketing for the movie.
It's
so
official answer from Paramount Studios to the people who were complaining about the owlbear since the trailer hit. Yeah. So, anyways, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon cameo. I don't think you grew up with that cartoon at all. There's no way you could have. I did. My gateway into Dungeons and Dragons and geekdom came from that cartoon, which that's almost the first thing, right? It was the first Dungeons and Dragons thing, but I probably got into Portal Fantasy from like Lion Witch in the Wardrobe and what have you. So Dungeons and Dragons, essential for me. And the fact that they were so well worked into this, no speaking roles, but they were all there, all present. Your mind fills in the gap of how long they've been in this world, because the kid does look like he's in his 30s, objectively, 40s maybe. The barbarian. But yeah. I love that. I love that consistent Easter egg of having them come up in the film and it not being like an overly complicated nod. So the sequel should be all about them.
Bradley Cooper sapling should come back too.
Sure, as long as it's all about
that's
Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. James, I miss doing this with you.
That's what's fun.
Yeah, we should watch more movies together apart and then get together and talk about them.
I think we could do that.
Yeah, I think it's a podcast. You know what we should call it?
Frank on film. Goodbye.
Oh, God. One last bit before we go. One last bit before we go. They did tease. I wish I could. You know what? I wish I had. I'm not going to wish. I'm going to do this. They had a video just released, I think, yesterday. That can I actually share this in the way that I want to? I think I can. Here you go. That I thought would be amazing if this were an actual feature. Apparently, it's just a teaser. I'm going to play it right now.
Great. Any questions before we start?
Playing Dungeons and Dragons, it's such an incredibly creative game.
And crew playing
The game teaches camaraderie, friendship. We had a blast.
She didn't think before rolling.
It stimulates your creative powers.
I don't mind that.
When things don't go to plan,
I tried to hug the owlbear and it didn't go well.
that's where you kind of get the best parts of the game.
I have 17 plus 3.
Let's talk money.
I have a plus 0. How about you guys?
That was a lot of fun.
There's Chunky.
That's going to be on the Blu-ray, and I'm going to buy it.
I would. First of all, if the Dungeons and Dragons movies brings back movie theaters and physical media, well, I guess streaming and the collapse of the streaming market might bring back physical media, but I'm all for it. But yeah, that sounds like such a fun thing to just see people playing. To actually see them play would be a very fun thing, especially if they're people who aren't like really accustomed to playing Dungeons and Dragons, but have like a comedic flair, like skill at comedy. that they could, if only we could capitalize on this. James, I'll get him.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.